Hello viewers, welcoming all of you to this conversation on Citizenship Amendment Act 2019. Myself Jinto Guhai. Today we have with us a promising, effective and vibrant voice since 2016 to the Citizenship Amendment process by Bharatiya Janata Party. He is a renowned scholar and academician in the state and the nation. He is none other than the current head of the Department of Political Science, Guwahati University, Professor AKHIL DUTTA sir. Sir, welcome to this conversation. As we all can see the burning situation regarding the Citizenship Amendment Act by the whole state, by different organizations, by students of institutions. So sir, my first question to you, what has provoked this resistance of current situation against this citizenship bill formerly and now it has turned into Citizenship Amendment Act?
Thank you very much for this conversation. Let me tell you one thing very clearly, very categorically in the very beginning, that the kind of resistance that we have witnessed throughout the country is something fundamentally different in case of Assam. You know, the current resistance throughout the country has not been that intense, which we witnessed in Assam. Therefore, to understand the case of Assam's resistance against the Citizenship Amendment Bill turned Citizenship Amendment Act, we need to understand the very specificity or the very particular context in Assam. There are a couple of issues, but I'll try to point out 3-4 very specific issues that have provoked the kind of resistance that we have been witnessing in Assam. Let me tell you, this is the third wave of resistance. The first wave of resistance we saw in 2015 when the two notifications came, in the form of amending the relevant provisions in Indian Passport Act 1920 and Foreigners Act 1946. Yeah. Now that resistance was not that strong. Certain organizations, including all of some students' union, also Krishak Mukti Sangram Samiti took a lead, and prominent intellectuals of the region also voiced their concerns. The second wave came when this bill came about, 2016 bill, and when the bill was introduced in Lok Sabha, got passed in Lok Sabha, and then it was introduced in the Rajya Sabha. You can say that later part of 2018 and early part of 2019, there was a huge resistance. Yes. I can call you that was unprecedented in a way, and that was also the period of the finalization of National Registry of Citizens. Now this is the third phase. 2019. I call it post 2019 Lok Sabha elections resistance. Now, I'll specifically focus on this particular resistance, but let me point out certain specificities that I have mentioned as far as Assam is concerned. If you look at the overall debate in the country as a whole, the debate which was also there both in Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha when this bill was introduced by the incumbent Home Minister Amit Shah. The particular issue of contention was Article 14 of the Constitution of India that guarantees right to equality and no discrimination. And when the bill was introduced, Amit Shah, the Home Minister, was using a particular phrase. He was telling positive classification, reasonable classification. His argument was this, that even within Article 14, you can have reasonable classification, as is the case with reservation for STs and SCs, for that matter, giving special protection to the minorities, special protection to women. And now let me tell about this specificity in case of Assam. What are the specific issues that provoked the kind of resistance that we have been witnessing in Assam? In case of Assam, 3-4 particular issues have emerged very prominently, and most important issue is the Assam Accord. Now Assam Accord, as you know, is the culmination of 6 years long Assam movement. Now there is a history. When the Assam movement started, there were a lot of lot of should I say disagreements
Yes, sir.
about the movement itself. If you look at in 1980, there was a strong debate in Economic and Political Weekly started by Professor Hiren Gohai with an article titled "Karjal of Chauvinism," which culminated in a series of articles, and the debate in EBW is titled as "Little Nationalism Turned Chauvinist," after the title of an article written by Professor Amolendu Guha. If you look at that article, we find that there were a lot of dissents against the Assam movement. Why was that dissent? Because the movement was assuming a violent turn. There were a lot of violences taking place, and there were apprehensions that the movement has also taken, or the movement might also take a communal turn, and we could see the kind of communal offensive and chauvinist offensive in case of Nelly massacre of 1983. However, gradually we saw that there's a consensus emerged, and consensus emerged particularly after the signing of the Assam Accord. Now, Assam Accord accepted 1971 as the cutoff date for detection, deportation, deletion and deportation of foreigners. Now, 1971 has also been accepted by those who were very critical of the movement. Look at, for example, minorities, particularly Bengali Muslims, who were otherwise targeted, was considered to be Bangladeshi en masse. They also started accepting that this could be one of the sustainable solutions as far as the foreign issue is concerned. Left progressive sections, including the various communist parties, they also accepted, who otherwise were very critical about the movement. Also the tribal communities who felt alienated both during the Assam agitation and subsequently also started accepting the Assam Accord. Congress accepted because it was during Congress regime that the accord was signed. Regional political parties accepted. Based on that, Assam Accord operation came about. Now, this is very interesting. We need to keep in mind that having a consensus of this kind is not very easy. It is very difficult in a situation like Assam. If you look at the representations being submitted to the JPC, Joint Parliamentary Committee, who came to Assam to get the opinion of the people of Assam on Citizenship Act, Citizenship Amendment Bill in I think 2018 May they came, or 2019 they guide. I think 2019 they came in the month of May, or 2018. One of the important phrase used by a group who submitted the memorandum was that Assam Accord is a public law contract, or public contract law. Understand, what does it mean is this, that it has, even if you can say that this was not Assam Accord is not an act enacted by the parliament, but it's a public contract. It's a contract between the government and the public, and you cannot violate it. Now, what this particular act or particular bill, turned act, is trying to dismantle the very consensus. So, as a political scientist, as a concerned citizen, my important concern is this, and this is also important because based on this particular accord, the NRC has been prepared. Now, if you do not accept Assam Accord, you will also not accept, and we have got the indications that. Now, NRC has also been a very, very long process. It has been expensive, and people have passed through, a lot of exercises, a lot of experiments, and people in Assam were expecting that there will be an end to this process. So, this particular act will dismantle both the Assam Accord and also the NRC, and that has also provoked the resistance in Assam. But the second and very important question is the language. If you see, probably after the Assam Accord, for the first time, en masse, that is chanting of Joy Ayo Home. And language has emerged as one of the very important, emotive and important issues here. And there's a context. If you look at, for example, Nilamani Fukan, who's a very Sahitya Academy awardee and very important, very elderly poet, and very respected poet, and he has expressed his apprehension that we may even lose our own mother tongue. He said, Air Mukhor Bhasha, the language that I have learned from my mother, mother tongue. we may be losing at a point. Now, language has been, because it has its own history. If you look at the 19th century, Assam had to fight a long war. When in 1837, Assamese were Bengali was made the official language here. Subsequently, in 1873, it was restored. Now, there is an apprehension because already our language, percentage of people speaking in Assamese language decreasing. It was 48 in 2011. Now there is an apprehension. I am telling it apprehension. We do not know the magnitude of the refugees, number of refugees.
Yes, sir.
As a political scientist, as a social scientist, I'll not go along with the figures given by different groups. I do not exactly
Even
know.
government don't have any kind
Government
of
doesn't
clear
have
stand on
clear
the figures.
stand on that. They say it is 5 lakh, some thousand, and the movement groups are telling it will be in 50,
and specifically
even crores.
within this resistance, the Chief Minister of Assam has been writing a kind of message to the people that different organization and different kind of resistance movement participant are telling about this figure. Actually, it will be to 1.50. Someone is 1.20. This kind of
Crores,
amount.
1.2. So I'm not going to the therefore I'm not going to the figures. Figures we do not know, but there is a genuine apprehension that there might be a very negative impact on the language itself. It may not remain the official language in the state of Assam. This is an apprehension. I'm telling this is an apprehension, and that apprehension cannot really be washed away, cannot really be undermined. The third important issue, I think, it is also a manifestation of the accumulated grievances. We have seen there were movements in Assam against the decision of the government to auction the oil fields. Now here in the Northeast India in general and Assam in particular, the resources have been very motive issue, very important issue. Resource control has been one of the important issues that almost all movements have talked about. Now the people in general were expecting that with this new government, the government, BJP-led government, there will be enough efforts to protect and preserve the resources of the people, and it is the people who will have control over the resources. So people are a bit disappointed the way the government has been doing it. And there are a lot of other issues. Namami Brahmaputra, for example, there was also a lot of controversies around it. Therefore, my understanding is that it is also a manifestation of the accumulated grievances. And fourth and final thing, I'll say, for the first time, secularism has emerged as one of the important references as far as this particular act is concerned. In Assam, we didn't hear about people referring to secularism or the constitutional foundation. Now, if you look at the movements here, we find that people have started talking about it. Asu, the chief advisor Samudjal Bhattacharya was telling it that this is also a blow to the constitutional foundation or the secularism itself, and it is discriminatory in nature. And they have been telling very categorically that for us, foreigner is a foreigner. You cannot divide foreigners on the basis of their religion. I think taking together all these factors have contributed towards the kind of resistance that we have been witnessing in Assam.
Coming to the point of this resistance or movement against this government draconian law or imposition of Citizenship Amendment Act, what is the composition of this mobilization by people? I mean to say, who is in the front end of this resistance actually?
It has been changing, and this is very interesting. Let me tell you, when you look at the pre-Ka resistance in 2019, for example, later part of 2018 and early part of 2019, the composition was of, I call it, confederation of three particular platforms. The resistance was steered by three particular platforms. One is ASU, All Assam Students Union, but it was not ASU alone. We could also see ASU plus 26 or 30 ethnic organizations. Now, for the first time, it was happening that ASU, in the post-Assam movement period, ASU was in a position to mobilize all these ethnic groups, and they could create a platform where ASU will be speaking not only on their behalf, ASU will speak collectively with the ethnic organizations. That was one of the very positive developments here. The other organization which took a very important role here is the KMSS, Krishak Mukti Sangram Samiti. Now, Krishak Mukti Sangram Samiti has a different mass base, support base. They have a support base both in Upper Assam and also in Lower Assam. But Upper Assam also has a strong base. Also, KMSS has a very important base, support base. But in Lower Assam, if you see, more than ASU, KMSS has the support base, and KMSS has also been successful in penetrating into genuine Indian, Bengali, Muslim communities, including Chor, Sapori and all. The third platform is, I think, this is Professor Hiren Gohai led. They call Nagorikotto Ain Hongshodhani Bidhayok Birodhi Mancha, the platform that they
He's
oppose,
been constantly fighting
against the
this
CAP,
issue,
citizenship bill, citizenship amendment bill. That is a platform against it. Now, very interestingly, this particular platform led by Hiren Gohai also emerged as a platform where all other could approach. For example, left political parties, the liberals, civil society organizations, they were also part and parcel of it. But very interestingly, there was a kind of disagreement, non-convergence between All Assam Students Union and KMSS. Now, platform led by Hiren Gohai emerged as a mediator. They had access both to ASU and KMSS, and if you remember, a delegation from this particular platform led by Hiren Gohai had also gone to the head office of ASU, Sohid Nyak, and they had deliberations to develop a kind of coordinated platform that you can. Therefore, that was pre this particular act phase. Now the things have changed. In this particular phase, the movement started with the young student unions of these three state universities: Cotton University Students Union, Dibrugarh University Students Union, Guwahati University Students, and subsequently, if you remember, Tezpur University Students Union have also joined. So the first momentum against this bill, and then it was not yet turned into an act. The first momentum came from this students' unions. Rana Hunkar, the program organized by Cotton Students Union, for example, or for that matter, Dibrugarh University also took the lead. The young students started it, took it to a momentum. Then also, KMSS was already there in the forefront. They have started mobilizing the people. Then ASU, in my perception, ASU entered little late. To the momentum of them, not that they were not part of it, they have always been the momentum, but they took the momentum little late. But right at the moment, I think it is ASU which is in the forefront of it, because you find that many of the leaders of
KMSS leader of
have been arrested.
So ASU came forward to take all the leaders and
they have also been innovating some very some creative strategies. They have been talking about satyagraha, curfew has been imposed, and they have been telling that there will be no movement, no agitation beyond 5 o'clock and all. Now, what you find here, and which was not happening earlier, the artists, writers, and people from different background have also started, and people, very elderly people, women particularly, have started joining in the movement. So if you look at the composition, composition is slightly changing. Not that it is constantly, it is in a constant way. A lot of equations are taking place, a lot of new alignments are taking place as far as the platforms are concerned.
So what is the possibilities that all these kind of suppose cultural and artist foundations or KMSS, All Assam Students Union and all other students union of these 4 to 5 universities, that what is the possibilities of coming to a certain one point, standing against a bold kind of steps towards the Citizenship Amendment Act in Assam? I mean to say, how will these organizations in the leadership of one organization or other societies or organization will be able to curtail or to challenge this government imposition of this law? To how far?
See, I do not see, and I have been telling it very clearly, this is a very political issue. And if you look at the compositions, you do not really have a political and ideological coherence, convergence. People are protesting very spontaneously. Students are protesting very spontaneously. But the three platforms that I mentioned, you do not find a convergence among them. I think that we have not been people of Assam have not been in a position to develop it into a united front of united resistance under a united or confederation, loose confederation. There are still big gaps among these various platforms which are steering the movement.
So what is the future ahead of this resistance actually?
There are two, we have seen that if you look at the newspapers, news from the media today, around 15, 15, it might be writ petitions have been, filed in the Supreme Court of India. Various organizations and various individuals are doing it. So one way is to challenge the very constitutionality, constitutional, constitutional basis of validity of this particular act, and that will be the legal case,
Legal fight.
Political fight. In my own understanding, if you look at, for example, Anna Hazare, Anna Hazare took the two cases in my hand, two cases I can refer to. Anna Hazare led the anti-corruption movement and NBA, Narmada Bachao Andolan movement, which culminated with collaboration with many other people's groups, people's movements group, NAPM. National Alliance for People's Movements. They also fought in the elections, but they were not successful. Now, if you look at pre-2019 elections, Lok Sabha elections, there was a huge momentum in Assam against the CAB. But that didn't have any impact on the electoral outcomes. Now, this is a very interesting point, and we need to discuss it more comprehensively.
Even BJP, certain leaders were in this kind of message that if we came to power in Assam, we will surely implement this.
That was declared. You had the anti-CAB movement, and BJP came out with the manifesto. They said that if they come back to power, they will go for this particular act. And if you look at the CSDS data, for example, on Assam, it's very interesting. It has said that 75% of the voters who opposed CAB also voted for BJP. And that's a very interesting point that we need to keep in mind. If you look at Delhi, for example, particularly Arvind Kejriwal, who was also part and parcel of this particular movement, Anna Hazare's movement. But he didn't leave it there. He formed his own political party and developed a alternative agenda while fighting in the elections, looking at the people living in the margin, talking in terms of electricity, talking in terms of water, talking in terms of education. In other words, he could come up with a combined, full-fledged agenda, political agenda, and to go to the people for the elections. Now, 2019 elections, Lok Sabha elections, why did it fail? Many people say anti-CAB has failed. Anti-CAB has failed because they didn't have a political agency. They didn't have a political party, political agency to fight for this. Resistance they built up, but resistance couldn't be transformed into the electoral outcomes because they didn't have a political agency.
No alternatives for
no alternative. They couldn't. AGP had gone back. Regional political parties were already with BJP. Then people didn't trust Congress. Congress couldn't be trusted. Although all these three platforms that I mentioned, all of them had gone to Rahul Gandhi to appeal him, to request him to do their best to stall the bill in the Rajya Sabha, which they did. But these people didn't say that Congress could be an alternative. So what did people will do? So unless and until you have a political agency to transform your dissent into electoral outcomes, these movements will not have that much of impact in defining and redefining the state agenda. This is important. But secondly, we need to remember that in the elections, one single issue cannot dictate the outcomes. This is very important. If you look at very strategically, if you look at the budget, for example, and BJP did it very strategically, if you look at 2019-20 budget of the state government of Assam, this is very interesting. The budget was full of promises, and most of the promises or most of the assurance or most of the schemes were dedicated to certain communities, and one of the communities were the tree communities in Assam. For example, we have National Food Security Act. Under National Food Security Act, you have to pay rupees 3 to get 1 kg of rice. In case of Assam, it is rupees 1. But in case of the tea, people living in the tea gardens, it is free of cost. This is one. Secondly, a lot of other schemes, case benefit schemes were also introduced. Then you had made provisions for hostelers, for example. You have made provisions for FUA for up to the postgraduate level. What I'm trying to suggest is this: when the election is fought, election is not fought around a single issue. Election is fought around number of issues, number of strategies. The second one we need to keep in mind: the movements, that we see the movements particularly on the street. The movements really do not go down to house to house campaign, but political parties, an organized political party like BJP, and being supported by grassroots organizations, cultural organizations, religious, including RSS, they go door to door. They have constantly been working for the party. They have their educational setup, they have their cultural setup, and so on and so forth. Now, the movements are very spontaneous, and political battles are very organized. So, if you cannot transform these spontaneous movements into organized political activity, you cannot really expect, the outcomes, positive
So
outcomes.
BJP, it sounds like BJP had a better kind of grassroots connection among the people as to house connection.
As far as 2019 elections, Lok Sabha elections
So
is
what is the
concerned,
possibility of, when we talk about AGP, Assam Gana Parishad, everybody know it's a kind of result of Assam movement and how they are still holding the concept of regionalism in this state. What is the possibility of Assam Gana Parishad of becoming a kind of alternative to BJP in Assam?
see, I can tell you that probably from 2001 onward, or the beginning of 21st century onward, I don't think that AGP has remained. AGP remained its own regional character. When Chandra Mohan Patwari was the president of the party, they allied with BJP, and they declared that they will be the big brother and BJP will be the junior partner. But that didn't happen. In 2016 elections, AGP was not the big brother or big, then they became the junior partner, which is also the case in 2019. Now, as far as political party is concerned, we need to remember that a political party consolidates based on certain factors. Most important issue, I think, is the leadership. Is the leadership trusted by the people? If you look at the AGP leadership today, they don't have a collective leadership. They don't have a trusted leadership. One set of leadership is with the government, other set of leadership is against the government, but none of these two sets of leaderships are trusted by the people. You listen to the voices of dissent against them. The second important factor as far as the political parties are concerned are resources. Now, resources are very important. If you want to mobilize the people, you have to have the resources. Resources could be of different kind. For example, money is one kind of resources, because you have to build up infrastructure, party offices, so on and so forth. Or resources could also be of different kind. If you can really develop a network of people, if you can develop cadres at the grassroots, that could be also the resources. But that can be done only by having a sound grassroots organization of the party.
Assam Gana Parishad seems to have right now. So is there any possibility of emerging out of a new kind of regional parties?
If you look at today's situation, I'm not very sure about that. Unless and until you can develop a united front, coordinated front, then you cannot create some movement. Culminated in the Accord and subsequently Assam Gana Parishad, because all other parties joined. PLP joined, Gana Sangram Parishad joined, and many other small regional political parties joined, and that culminated in Assam Gana Parishad. But today, if you look at, as I have mentioned, that still a lot of differences are there among the platforms which are at the forefront of the resistance. But I I am neither optimistic, I am not nor pessimistic.
Yeah.
Because in the long run, if people understand that they need a alternative, because in the anti-CAB movement, in the current phase, you have also heard of anti-BJP sentiments,
Yes.
you know. Therefore, if it depends on the people whether they'll think in terms of accepting any existing political party as the alternative, or they'll be thinking in terms of having a complete alternative political force to transform this descent to that of electoral outcomes.
Yes.
But right at the moment, I do not
You cannot
see.
assume, actually.
I cannot assume
Assume.
that this will be the outcomes
Yeah.
in terms of developing a political.
Again,
framework.
in terms of this resistance, if you've seen on the news coverage of different channels about the protest, how do you look at this kind of use of military or police by the government on students? That we used to see that police has been throwing tear gas on students. Common peoples are in front of the guns of military or CRPF. How do you look at the functioning of democracy in this part of this nation?
See, it depends on your understanding of the situation. Now, if you look at, I was hearing to the new DGP of Assam, Bhaskar Jyoti Mohanto. He was telling that police has been forced to use, go for, firing or lathi charge, or that was not their intention. Now they have their own point of legitimacy of, providing, using legitimacy for the use of that. But I can also tell you that when the movement is very spontaneous, there are elements which erupts in sporadic violence.
Yeah, within the moments.
Within the momentum of, if it is spontaneous, it is not organized, who will be dictating, who will be telling what is to be done, and so on and so forth. If you look at the last violence, the kind of violence that happened in Guwahati, that was the legitimacy was also provided by the kind of vandalism that the agitators indulged in at the very first instance. But the point is, the question that needs to be asked, and that will definitely take time. Who did it?
Yeah.
Were the genuine protesters doing it? Or there were certain elements who wanted to disrupt the movement itself. Therefore, as a Democrat, as a person having trust in the ethics and the values that our constitution has given, using violence by state is cannot be justified. I remember Jyoti Prasad Agarwala here, and I'll end up with this. Jyoti Prasad Agarwala, you remember, he was also one of the prominent leaders of the anti-colonial movement, and 1940 he was in the forefront, but gradually he became disillusioned with the movement, Gandhian techniques, and so on and so forth. In 1940 and 1949, he had written certain articles, and one important, and you must be knowing that Nalia Pulor report Honket, this particular letter written by Jyoti Prasad Agarwala, that was in the very particular context of police firing in Naliapur, where the Bharatiya Gananatya Sangha, IPTA, Indian People's Theatre Movement, provincial conference was happening. Now, in that particular essay, Naliapur report Honket, also in other very important speech that he delivered in 1948, Hilpi Prithvi, he was very critical of Congress using violence against the communists. And he was telling that if the non-violence is the ethics of our anti-colonial movement, non-violence is the philosophy of the new Indian state. How do you legitimize violence being used by the state? The same is the case now when there could be sporadic violence. That sporadic violence in a spontaneous movement cannot be justified. But in that pretext, government should be very careful about
taking care of this movement and resistance.
Yes, and good thing I have seen that it's not an appeasement. Just I'm taking because I have been listening that at least the DGP was telling that we have nothing to do with the democratic movements. So long as you are democratic, so that so long you are not indulging in violence,
Yeah.
we are also not going to use
take it.
violence. The lesson learned is this, that the movements have to be very careful. Movements have to be very careful in terms of looking after the fact that no disruptive elements enter into the process of the
Within their
movement and
movements.
thereby create violence and bring crisis to the movements itself. So my appeal to the people of Assam, for that matter people of the entire country, that under whatever circumstances you never indulge in hatred,
violence.
you never indulge in violence, you never indulge in provocation. This is a democratic movement and we have to sustain the democratic ethos of the movement.
So my last question to you, sir. So how do you look at the impact of this resistance? Because the 2021 state assembly election is coming, then again onwards this kind of election do we have to face on our future. How this resistance will go to affect or impact the people? Because if we see on the roads people are shouting against BJP, go back. People are shouting on RSS, people are shouting on Hindutva. So how it will impact the election?
So I think I have answered these questions because when I was analyzing 2019 Lok Sabha elections, shouting on the streets is something different from organizing the people at the grassroots. The BJP, despite all people's agony with BJP has constantly been trying to have their own strategies of mobilizing the people. You cannot do away with that. For example, BJP will look at every polling booth, how many people came to vote for the election, what percentage didn't come for voting, and who are those people who didn't come for voting. Now their target is these people who didn't come for voting. If you can mobilize them and if you can take them to the polling station, then look at the strategies. So I think these are very, very important strategies. I think even the democratic forces, secular forces need to learn from the strategies being adopted by BJP to fight in the elections 2021 or beyond. I keep on telling that BJP has learned strategies of popular mobilization from the communists. At one point, it was the communists. These were the communists who had gone down to the grassroots and were organizing the people at the grassroots rather than shouting in the street. Now it is BJP. There are people who are shouting on the street and they are working at the grassroots. So I think that will determine. Dissent automatically doesn't transform into electoral outcomes. That needs to be kept in mind. So as a political scientist, this is my understanding after doing a lot of electoral studies.
So thank you, sir, for being with us in this conversation. So thank you, viewers, for watching us. This was a kind of conversation with Professor AKHIL Datta. He is the head of the Department of Political Science, Guwahati University. And we had a very frightful and bright discussion on Citizenship Amendment Bill to Citizenship Amendment Act. We will be back with other kind of topics on this kind of conversation with him. Till then, bye-bye.